Hi, folks. Welcome to Tuesday's edition of the I Write Radio podcast. Apologies from both Jimmy and I for not being able to make it yesterday for different reasons. Jimmy was keeping the economy turning over. I was underneath the downy being ill. Today we're going to look at Nicola Sturgeon's press conference. Some of us watched it on BBC Scotland, which is just Nicola, and Jimmy watched it on BBC One, which is everybody except Nicola. So we'll look at the different positions on that, and then we're just going to run round and ask everybody what caught their eye today, because there's an awful lot floating about, not least of which is the SNP civil war. That's me with my MSN hat on, by the way, boys, in case you were wondering. Stewart, we'll let you kick off with the presser. What did you think?
I thought it was quite interesting today. Jason Leach there, as I said many times, he's great, always good value. What we discovered the press were interested in was the possibility of more rules, stricter rules coming in. And we discovered straight away that the targets for any stricter rules will be click and collect, which is, I may have to be a wee bit more clearer about, and takeaways. And related to that, the other question people were asking about, why can't you have a coffee and sit on a bench with your mate when you're going for your run or whatever, something like that. Essentially, the answer to all of that is, look, you're allowed to go out for exercise, but you can't go out to socialise. And that's because that's basically allowing the virus to jump around. And that's the short answer to that. We did actually get one point where Jason Leach had said he had joy. I mean, come on. You can rarely have joy in the middle of a pandemic, but he was very pleased with the way the vaccination program's going in the care homes. 80% has been delivered so far. So let's have the good news, eh? And the other thing is, I gather Hugh Pennington's name came up again. And the wifey that got that, I've written down here, I'm going to diss her, Shona Duffy from Original 106. If she doesn't know by now that Hugh Pennington is an arse, then she's going to get dissed by all her peers, her other journalists on other outlets. She's really going to get it tonight, and if it was in the pub, they'd be laughing at her.
I have to jump in here and say Hugh Pennington is very good on his own subject.
Look,
no, seriously.
I can think of a lot of people that are very good at talking about football.
Seriously.
I wouldn't ask him about a pandemic.
Well, I mean, I can't remember what his actual qualification is, but he was on some program. He was excellent.
Yeah, but he has become rent-a-union. The standard union that they go to get the biased viewpoint that they want to put across. And frankly, some of the mistakes that he himself made earlier in the pandemic, talking about an R number of 10, for example, should have alerted to the press to the fact that he's not necessarily to be trusted on the figures anymore, because he's getting into his dotage.
His history of predictions, of telling the First Minister, the authorities, what to do given the circumstances he could see, has been wrong every time.
Aye.
He's very good on his own subject.
Yeah, but he's been absolutely useless at this pandemic. But he's a rent-a-gob, that's all.
I think
I'm hustling for a job in the mainstream media here, boys.
But
rent-a-gob's a tenner penny on the TV. They ask the most stupid people to give their views on what's happening. Well, I mean, the prime example. We see them, they stand up in Westminster, the most stupid people you could ever imagine. Jimmy had said we're getting one later this afternoon. Pretty Patel, you know?
Yeah, she's a particularly odious creature.
Right, Jimmy, come on, give us the BBC One version.
Well, the BBC One version was interesting to watch, mate. They covered Nicola for, I don't know, they covered maybe 20 minutes, and then they gave 10 minutes to Dougie Ross, 10 minutes to Anna Sarwar. It was very much the Yoon show today. And I think that's BBC One marking out their territory, that they are going to be in the vanguard of attempting to ensure that the SNP do not poll over 50% in May. Because
So what did they ask Dougie Ross to comment on?
oh, they were asking him about, again, their entire show was kind of geared towards the story they want to tell, which is possibly more restrictions being announced tomorrow. Now, I don't think there will be more. I think they'll maybe just tighten a couple of things, tweak this and that. They absolutely were pushing the line that we are going to be seeing these restrictions into February and March. And Dougie got to have a pop because he wants to see the evidence. I don't know what evidence he wants to see. He was talking about he wants to see the evidence for any decisions announced tomorrow in Holyrood. Well, mate, you'll see it the same as the rest of us when they publish it, because you're nothing to do with Holyrood. You're a Westminster MP. So you ain't going to see anything that the MSPs are going to see. As I say, he got to bump his gums, then Anna Sarwar. Interestingly, they went to Anna Sarwar. I'm assuming that BBC have now decided Richard Leonard is such a calamity that they're going to speak to the people around him rather than the leader of Scottish Labour.
The next leader of Scottish Labour.
I think he's certainly the one that the BBC want. I think they've made that pretty clear. And fair play to him, he actually sounded like he had a personality the day. He sounded like he'd been doing a wee bit of PR training somewhere along the line, because he didn't give the old monotonous one-tone voice. Again, it was similar to Douglas Ross in that he wants to see more evidence. And his pitch also went along the Keir Starmer route of, we need more support for people. We need to get that support out there, and it needs to be easier to apply for. Be interesting to see how quickly Labour jump on this bandwagon with the story that's going on now with the £30 food vouchers that people are no longer getting, and instead they're getting these daft wee packages, because I think that's tailor-made for somebody like Lisa Nandy to be bouncing around the TV studios giving her opinion that Tories are cunts all day this afternoon. So
could somebody tell Charlie we're not letting him in even if he puts his hand up? Right, Phil.
Right, just to answer, Jimmy, how long till Labour starts? Well, I wasn't sure. Lisa Nandy's got one up on Facebook, but Long Bailey has, Rayner. In fact, Facebook at the moment is full of pictures of you've got 30 quid what you can buy in the shop, and the 5 quid you get there. But I was listening to all on BBC Radio, so you got the whole thing. I thought the reasons why they were looking at it, well, actually, just walk out into Duke Street, walk into the Kergate, walk into a supermarket, and they were given it. And it's quite obvious why. It's that contact. Oh, I'm going to the shops. It doesn't matter. You're going to some of these shops, no masks, nothing. It's a nonsense, and it's really got to stop. The incidences are going up, and people go along to get a coffee, like I did this morning, and then you go and sit. Now, you're only with somebody else, but then just along there's another 2 people just with someone else. So you end up with a park and all that fully people. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to kind of take it seriously. And I think that's what they're doing. But people don't like bad medicine, do they?
Yeah, there's an interesting sort of disconnect, I think, with people looking at the numbers. You said cases are going up, Phil. They're not. New cases are dropping and have been for about a week.
Still going up.
I think
it's not going up as fast.
No, they're not, mate. They're down. We're under 1,700 new cases. It was 2,500 just a few days ago. There's going to be an interesting problem comes about, because we will see more hospitalisations with the jump that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Those people will start going into hospital over the next few days. But the Scottish Government have always told us that they had a surge capacity that could cope. And at the moment, they're nowhere near that surge capacity as yet. We've got the Louisa Jordan that's not being used. So that also adds to the surge capacity. I think the main worry is the massive jump in cases in Ireland. Yeah. They're worried that could happen here. And the main worry for me is that it comes cross-border, because the northwest of England is getting battered again. So I expect Dumfries and Galloway to take a battering next week. I think we should smile a wee bit. The numbers, they're not going down in the way that we would hope, but they certainly appear to have plateaued at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's because of the restrictions that they brought in from Boxing. I mean, Jesus, from Boxing Day, you're now looking, that's 3 weeks ago almost, and it certainly worked.
Well, she used the term preventative when she announced them, and she's just stayed ahead of the curve for the rest of the UK, hasn't she?
I think right now it looks like we may have dodged a bullet a wee bit. You know, it's not hammered us in the way that it's hammered England. And my God, the jump in Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, has been monumental.
Ireland's terrifying.
Yeah, I think they say they're
doing really, really well.
1,300 cases at the moment, 1,300 cases
really
per 100,000, which is huge. Aye.
Good, Jimmy. Before you go away too far away from Douglas Ross, given that he's a football referee, he must have talked about football.
Fish.
No, he studiously avoided talking about fish. As
football,
I say,
no fish.
I didn't think.
Talking fish.
Mate, his opinion on football is about as relevant as his opinion on fish. The fact that he's an assistant referee doesn't make him in any way an expert on football. Trust me, the man's a clown.
We should really call him the 3 Fs: football, fish, and fascism.
I like that one, Dory.
Phil, you were trying to get in earlier.
I think I forgot what it was. Keep going.
Okay.
You're after the headline in today's show. Football, fish, and fascism. That'll be it.
Well,
the other thing that stood out for me was the desperation of the mainstream media to get some figures that they can down the line throw some blame at. That weird question about, can you tell me how long it is from delivery of the vaccine to it getting the arm?
Oh, Jason Leach was really good with that, wasn't he? He says, he anticipated possibly how long from, there might be a question, how long from the factory to the arm?
Yeah.
He could have answered that one. He really just floored the journalist, was swatted away.
They wouldn't want to ask that question because obviously the vaccine has to be ferried over the channel.
That's very true. I think the fact that, I think we should be singing it for the rooftops, the fact that they're past 80% in care homes, the fact that, as you said, Norrie, you know, plenty of people in the NHS have already had their jab and they're no front line, they're no COVID cases. I think we should be absolutely praising them. Anna Sarwar had a wee go again on testing and track and trace and stuff like that, because, you know, his line was the track and trace was meant to prevent lockdowns. So obviously track and trace has failed. It's a rather fatuous argument, given that we really didn't expect the new variant and something that spreads quite so rapidly as this. But I think he's a fatuous man, so him making a fatuous argument isn't necessarily a surprise, is it?
Did he at any point suggest that we follow Wales's lead on track and trace?
No, he didn't, mate. I think that I'd imagine there'll be an attack line about the app, because we've not heard about the app for a while, so maybe they'll go in the app this week or something, you know?
Must be working.
Aye.
Phil?
Yeah, it was the new cases that they have in Scotland. That's another thing that was said. They're literally all the new variant.
Mm-hmm.
So, like when you said what's happening in Ireland, I mean, sorry, it's 1 and 1's 2. It's going to happen here. It's just next door. It's going to bounce over. Of course it will. It's a pandemic. And at the moment, and we've still got quite a lot of winter to go. It will just be gearing up. So I think, you know, we have every right to, lockdown doesn't bother me. It's been boring the last 9 months. I think I could manage another month or two, especially if I get all those lovely faces at the pub. You know what I mean?
That's fine and dandy, mate. But in another month or two, how many people have gone to the wall? How many businesses have gone to the wall? How many people can't feed their wains? You know, lockdown is having a massive effect on people's lives. And frankly, anybody that had spare cash sitting in the bank has probably tanned it by now.
I'm going to ask all three of you a question because it's just popped into my head that I don't know the answer to. We know the numbers that have died. And there are numbers for the excess deaths. People have died because their cancer wasn't caught or heart attacks weren't treated quickly enough. But how many people have got what they call long COVID? How many people of 40 and 50-year-old have got a serious illness that might be with them for the rest of their lives? We don't know.
No, and we won't know for years.
No, that's going to play out quite depressingly, I'd imagine. For quite a lot
I
of
sit
people.
and think about this. I've got 50-year-old, my children, 40, 50-year-old, and their friends and their partners, and I worry about getting into that part of my family.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, mate. As you say, it's one of these unknowns that I think will long term prove quite depressing because they don't know how it affects people and who it's affecting. That's why, the politicians might seem, you look at the restrictions in that, and particularly on the right wing, there's people saying you can't restrict this, you can't restrict that. Well, I'm sorry, if the politicians are being a bit cautious and desperately wanting people not to contract this infection at all, it's not just deaths that they're worried about. It is the long-term effects that you're talking about, Stuart. And if they seem a bit cautious, I've had a pop at them in the past, but their caution is rightly placed in that manner. We didn't want to be dealing with this. I didn't want to be COVID positive and maybe have either life-limiting or life-changing effects coming from that. As much as I'm moaning, I was out on the piss the other day. I think I've been in 5 shops and in maybe 5 shops in 2 houses since I parked a taxi up 2 or 3 days before Christmas. I think that's being relatively careful. I think most people are. When Stephen Riker Sunday, was saying that they're getting 90% compliance, that was a fabulous number to hear.
I think, she's right. We're all guilty of that kind of, this wee thing will no matter.
Mm-hmm.
Grandson sticks his head in the door. Daughter pops in with a cake, or, and they'll be the things that...
You're getting cakes delivered?
Not this time, by the way, I'm complaining.
Right. I had it from Australia last night. Last night I posted just a nice wee video of somebody who'd been into the Pentlands over in the last few days.
Mm-hmm.
There's loads of snow in there, loads of nice photographs, and it looks great. And the headline upset Keith. And he says, in the way it was written, it's like something about this is lockdown in Edinburgh, and what all these pictures of people in the hills enjoying themselves. That's not lockdown.
Yeah, well, it's our version of lockdown. Everybody's version is slightly different, isn't it? Every country attacks it from a slightly different viewpoint. I have seen a lot of pictures of people in the hills because I've got a few friends in the Highlands, obviously. And I've seen, one of the guys that I follow is a member of Glencoe Mountain Rescue, and he was getting a hard time for being up on Ben Nevis the other day. With somebody who clearly didn't know that he's a member of the Mountain Rescue team. I'd imagine, there's too many COVID cops out there that want to just have a pop at what people post online. If you feel the need to go and have a walk on a hill, as long as you're being safe, I didn't have an issue with that. I genuinely don't. Same with folk that want to go and walk in the park or take a wander down New Haven or Porty or whatever. If you get, we've got to trust our neighbours a wee bit and trust that they are being as safe as they can be, and trust ourselves that we're being safe as we can.
I would like a personal report from Portobello Promenade, to be honest, because I went there maybe 3-4 times since the pandemic started, but I haven't been there for a while now. But even on a cold day, a day like we've had, for the last 4 or 5 days, we've had lots of nice, very cold days, but calm, clear blue skies. People will be walking up and down that promenade in the thousands.
Is there not a webcam on Porty Promenade?
It's a bit late. Well, today's another day for it, though. It's blue skies again. There'll be. I don't know. Watching down there.
Yeah, we've gone walking the dog in Porty. It's the weekend or that. It's like Margate or Southend. you know, you're standing, you're coming from Seafield, and as you walk along, and you just see this huge mob all up in the promenade, absolutely jam-packed. Hardly, well, that was no wearing masks as well. That this is what they're going to try and make compulsory as well. We're talking about wearing your mask outside.
Yeah, no, it's in the word promenade. Now, this is something that is actually, I've seen this as a sociologist, a social scientist. I've noticed it as I've wandered around over the years. That's what people do when they go to a festival half the time. They don't just go in front of the stage and watch the band. They sit around and watch everybody else walk past. People go to places like Portobello Beach to walk up and down the promenade. They don't, at this time of year, they're not interested in the sand or the sea, but they want to be seen and to see other
but
people.
that's, I mean, you're getting into an area there though where
it's natural.
And you're getting into a strange area as well where you want to, you're dissing people for going.
I'm not dissing them, Jimmy. I'm not
yeah,
dissing
but
them.
They do
but
it.
that's a problem though, Stewart. Politicians will take advantage of this. I personally think mask wearing outside is daft. I don't think
me.
I don't think it's going to make much of a difference, but I think the politicians will bring it in at some point, just because they can. And frankly, I'm not that comfortable with politicians imposing upon people in that manner. You know, that I think mask wearing in the shops is brilliant. If folk didn't want to wear masks, I know Sainsbury's have came out today and said they will be challenging people who are not wearing masks, and they will refuse entry.
Right, guys, come on, let's move on now.
Mm-hmm.
Phil, have you picked anything up today that you think needs to?
No. The only thing which I found a bit odd, you know, the Labour United Front against independence. And this is just, you know, as you know, I'm a Labour Party member, and it was one of the contenders for the leadership, you know, against Keir Starmer. And it was Clive Lewis. Now, I don't know if you've heard it, but I mean, I'm listening to this now. Does this sound like a Labour leadership contender? And it says, it's not very long. Post-Brexit, it now seems increasingly clear the Scottish people have two clear choices before them. One, union with a declining imperial power ruled by hard-right neoliberal English nationalists, or vote for Scottish independence and look to rejoin the union and emerge in power with democratic institutions gaining in power, not receding.
Was that, are you saying that was Clive Lewis?
That's Clive Lewis.
Didn't Ben Bradshaw also say something very similar?
Yeah, but I like Clive Lewis. I'm not keen on Ben.
Okay.
I didn't even bother reading Ben Bradshaw on your bike.
No, he said much the same thing as well.
Oh yeah, well they're starting to wake up as well to the possibility, and the simple fact that 40% of Labour voters think have a good idea, vote for independence. I know the Labour Party is packed with people that are voting for independence, or even if they don't vote for independence, they believe you should have a referendum.
I thought that was Keir Starmer's Keir Starmer's thought police coming to get you there with that siren in the background, Phil.
It's the Storm Troopers, right?
I like that.
I noticed Gordon Brown's new outfit. What is it?
Oh.
Scotland in Westminster or something.
Scotland's future.
Is that what it's called? Got a couple of mentions today at the presser for fiddling some statistics.
Yes, again, Jason Leach. What a soldier he is. He's there to completely diss the stats. He says they don't add up. You're comparing a model, modeling and actual facts, and it's not the same.
Yeah. Well,
Jimmy,
let's be honest. Be honest.
You had something fishy on your mind.
Yeah, it was just a tweet that I'd seen from somebody who was at Peterhead Fish Market this morning. Now, I ken a couple of folk that are in the business. They'd have been at Peterhead last night and this morning. Apparently, fish prices collapsed today because effectively they don't have access to the European market at the moment. So it's only a UK market into which they're selling because the product just isn't getting through in time. No, I didn't know the biggest market in Europe is in Boulogne.
Yeah.
So the product just isn't getting to Boulogne in time to be sold. And frankly, they're switching already. They're switching to Irish producers and that because they can guarantee delivery dates that the UK fishermen just can't. So
I've got to throw in the
apparently there was a
BBC, Jimmy. It's the BBC that's not. It's not pointing out to the public that all these fishermen were lying or fed a pup, one way or the other.
Yeah. Well, they can't, as I say, they can't get the product to market, mate. And there's the UK market. Well, there's a lot of it we just won't buy. You know, the market for shellfish in particular doesn't sell in the UK because it's too expensive. The Europeans are perfectly willing to pay 40 quid for a live lobster. We're no.
Well, I believe there's quite a lot of, I mean, I've been following it quite closely. There's quite a lot of work going on to try and do something about it, but we don't have enough vets.
Yeah.
I
read that one that we didn't have enough vets to do the inspections that are now required. There's also this nonsense. I mean, it will be portrayed, but effectively, it's going to be portrayed as the SNP try to block new fisheries.
That's already started.
Aye, and the reality is the SNP do not, as it's a devolved issue, they do not want Westminster's grubby hand. They would just use the dough and we'll sort that market out. So it's going to be portrayed as an SNP against the rest of the country thing. They'll tell us it's, they'll get to use their favourite word, divisive, and tell us that our government, our democratically elected government, is being divisive and that we shouldn't be voting for them. Frankly, I would trust anybody in the SNP to do a better job for Scottish fishermen than I would any Tory whatsoever. I mean, the only thing the Tories are interested in is profit, is money, is grift, is taking from the people and putting it in their own pocket. So they can't be trusted to get anything right ever. Which
moves you quite neatly onto what was mentioned earlier, the £30 for 2 apples fiasco.
Yeah, that's just horrific. It's nice to note that Marcus Rashford, the football player, is right at the forefront of this straight away, because it seems the Tories are more scared of him than they are of Keir Starmer and the entire Labour Party, because when Marcus Rashford gets involved, things start getting done because he's got such a huge Twitter following, and obviously Boris is feared of a big Twitter following. But aye, what we've seen, Norrie, is horrendous. These pictures of what people are getting delivered, and they're saying it's 30 quid's worth of fid. As you said, you could get it for less than a fiver in the corner shop.
Well, when I saw it, I didn't believe it. Simple as that. I thought, aye, this is, somebody on Twitter banging a drum. But
can I ask just that? I haven't followed this story. Can somebody explain to me what the story is?
Well, aye, last time when people were homeschooling, they got a voucher for 30 quid that they could go and spend in a myriad number of supermarkets and whatever, just extra food because you're going to be cooking extra meals because the kids are at home.
Oh, right, they're not getting school dinners.
Yeah, this time instead, the Tories have employed a private company called Chartwell. Nice name, lovely. Who lived there? Do we remember? Anyway, Chartwell are supplying this 30 quid's worth of food to people, and then it turns up and it's a couple of tins of beans, a couple of tins of soup, a loaf, a couple of bananas, an apple, a couple of frubes, and nonsense. It's nowhere near 30 quid's worth of food. We all know, you go to a supermarket, you spend 30 quid, you can get a decent basket of messages for 30 bucks.
Aye.
So somebody's priced it, it's worth about £5.89 or something, Stewart, and there you go. That private company's just made themselves 20 odd quid. How many 20 odd quids have they already made by providing shite baskets of food to people?
Unreal.
It will get jumped on, and I'm sure it'll get sorted out. But by that point, that company's already trousered a couple of mil and somebody's walked away with it.
But just in efficiency-wise, just to hand people over a voucher, because then they'll get every part of that voucher and it's redeemable, is just far more efficient, marvelous. Yeah. But it's like everything; it's a scam. Sorry, if you fell asleep next to one and they'd steal one of your kidneys before you woke up. I'm telling you.
Stuart, anything strike you as?
Oh yes. Michelle Ballantyne.
Ooh.
Right, this is the wifey that raised 6 kids on benefits.
Ex-nurse.
An ex-nurse, okay, so what? But she raised 6 kids on benefits. She was a Tory, and while she was a Tory, she was all in favour of the rape clause. I mean, you couldn't put 2 worse things together. And right, a woman who raised 6 kids on benefits, supporting a clause that stops any woman with more than 2 kids getting support from the government. How the ultimate of hypocrisy. Well, she's kept herself in the headlines because she's left the Tories, and now she's a poster girl, and she's no good looker. I shouldn't say that, but I've nearly said something very rude. She just reminded me of a pig for some reason or other.
Yeah.
It just flashed across my mind. It was like one of those strange comedies from the past. But she is now the poster girl for Brexit. Nigel Farage. Oh, wait a minute. That's my punchline. Brexit Party. Somebody Tice. The whole bunch of rascal fascists that have changed their name to a much more friendly name called Reform. She's now the poster girl in Scotland because she's still in post as an elected politician at Holyrood, and it's the only toehold that these fascists have got in Holyrood.
Right, which brings us back to that old chestnut. She was elected on the list.
For the Tories.
Right? She's now no longer a member of the Tory party.
Oh, but worse than that, she's a member of another officially recognised Scottish party.
Right, so are the Tories not entitled to bump her?
Yeah. They're not, unfortunately, but they actually should be. If she chooses to join another party, they should be able to say, right, fine, step down with immediate effect, and we will promote someone who was on the list and who's actually a Conservative. Yeah. Because and I know she's only going to be there till May, but she's squatting using Conservative votes. And you can't much I hate the Tories, but she's squatting in there as using Conservative votes to now promote Nigel Farage's latest rebrand. And Nigel Farage is delighted, of course, because it gives him a face to hang any electoral failure on. The Reform Party will not get enough votes to get her re-elected, I don't think. But that electoral failure will be hung around her neck rather than Nigel's.
Stewart, when you said about brought up 6 kids on benefits, it's just when you say, was she a single mum? Was it single mum, or was it child benefit, or was she on a dog? Because I thought she was a pretty well-off hotel owner.
Yeah, she is. She is quite wealthy.
No, it's her. You're getting her confused with Rachel Hamilton. She's the one that's the hotel owner.
They all look the same.
Aye, boilers. They all look like they need an annual service for Scottish Gas. Who, interestingly, has anybody noticed that Scottish gas workers are now on strike? Because the UK media are absolutely avoiding telling us that.
Yeah, they want to fire everybody and bring them back on new contracts.
Aye, they're doing a fire and rehire thing. And
oh no, they'll be paying them more money, won't they?
No.
Disaster capitalism. Keep repeating it.
Up to 150 unpaid hours you may have to work for British Gas as an employee. 150 hours unpaid. That's 2 weeks of work that they're basically having. In fact, no, it's no. It's
Can I ask? Anybody knows who owns British Gas these days? I bet it's offshore at least.
Centrica.
Yeah. But they're. I think that's owned by some hedge fund in America now, aren't they, or something like that?
Are you sure it's not the Italian government?
Oh goodness knows.
The shower of parasites, whoever they are.
Yeah, I would like to just put out there my support for the workers of British Gas. I very much doubt that you're going to win this fight, but you have my support in it anyway.
Good time to go on strike, winter. Excellent.
Yeah.
Anybody got anything else?
I've got good news about, because the First Minister is apparently extremely popular. The latest, we don't have any opinion polls post leaving the European Union about political parties yet, but they do have a survey out saying that the First Minister is streets ahead of every other politician in the UK.
In Scotland.
Just a quick comment. A weak old corpse would make a more efficient politician than anybody else, any other politicians in the UK. She hasn't got much opposition, has she? Doesn't really have any.
Well, the actual thing was in Scotland, hugely popular. In England, she's on a par with Starmer.
Yeah. I've seen just online nonsense chat that the SNP should stand candidates in England. I'd like to shoot that one down quite swiftly. There's a reason it has the S at the start of its name. But
I think that would be hilarious. I think it would be brilliant.
I think it'd be an awful waste of money.
Right along the south coast.
Okay, and I also did see a little, it wasn't even an article, it was just a few paragraphs on Facebook by our friend Peter A. Bell, who was poo-pooing the idea that that anybody other than a unionist would want Nicola Sturgeon to be sacked or stepped down before the election.
Yeah.
And he's right, because, but he did make the point that she might want to go herself. She might get a bit been fed up. She's been in government. She's been in this job for a long time. She keeps mentioning that she did 6 years as health secretary before she took over as first minister. That's 12 years she's been a minister of government.
She's proud of her.
She would get a very well paid job, easier job almost anywhere else. I've got to go because it's my door.
Okay.
Well, I've got to say on that one, everything that her and her husband have done over the last few years has been to strengthen her position within the party and within Scottish politics. There's no danger she'll walk away until such time as she has achieved whatever she wants to achieve. She may have to. I think if there's a vote of no confidence in her in Holyrood and she lost that vote of no confidence, I think her position would be untenable.
I think that's normal political behaviour for people that are leaders, deputy leaders. They're sitting there. It's just normal behaviour what they've done. You look at any other party and have a look at, they've all got allies. I mean, Salmond had his allies in there, so she's got her allies. You know, they've all got allies. I mean, they look at it one party, but no, the one party's actually used a whole bunch of different factions.
Yeah, but Phil, there's no talent in Holyrood. They've said there's no talent in Holyrood. They've sent all the talent down to London. She didn't want any big beasts in Holyrood stalking her, maybe ready to knife her in the back when the opportunity came. Why are people like Joe Cherry? Oh God, Tommy, what's the boy for Edinburgh East?
Shepherd.
Tommy Shepherd. Why are they all in London? Some of these boys and girls down in London want to be up here because we need the talent up here. It's the Scottish Parliament that will declare us an independent nation. It's not the English one.
Jimmy, timing had a lot to do with it. I mean, the first opportunity they had.
Yeah, to get them into positions was. And there have been 2 general elections,
so it's not just, you know, they sent all their best talent down. That's nothing unusual. I mean, if you look at the Labour bench in the Scottish Parliament. I mean, even so, I know he's leaving at the end, Neil Findlay. I mean, Neil Findlay just looked at him and basically said it just needs a complete clear out. I mean, they've been there for 20 odd years, and
including Neil Findlay.
Aye. And let's be honest, a lot of them have achieved the sum total of fuck all.
Yeah, but their egos are still climbing, you know.
Mm-hmm. How on earth does somebody like Ken James Kelly's old man had Glasgow Labour very tightly sewn up in that? But how on earth does somebody like James Kelly get a career in politics?
He's a bit unfortunate with his delivery.
Mate, he's greyer than Ian Gray. He's greyer than John Major. He has absolutely no personality whatsoever. Who on earth thought that was a good idea? I mean, not only to give him a job, but to promote him.
It must be really galling for the likes of Henry McLeish to look at what's sitting there now.
Oh, God, aye.
Must be.
Yeah. Self-inflicted completely.
But we look at some of the brilliant representatives Labour have had over the years. You know, Mark Lazarevich. Even the old school teacher, I didn't particularly like him. What do you make of him?
Malcolm Chisholm, yeah.
But he was a clever guy. He knew his stuff. Jesus, he could. The problem for somebody like Malcolm is he's just no Ouija. Scottish Labour is run by Ouijas for Ouijas. They should really rename themselves the Ouija Labour Party.
That's
Because
how you put Jane Kelly.
If you ain't a Ouija, you ain't getting promoted, mate. And I'm sorry, but the fact that the Scottish government are complicit in this as well. The fact that they constantly talk about North and South Lanarkshire and that's Ouija land. Anything west of Gorgie, you're a Ouija.
Huh. I always thought it was Falkirk myself, because that's when the accent really starts to change from Falkirk onwards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're up for the headline today, west of Gorgie, but no, I'm sticking with Footy, fish, and fascism.
Fascism. I charge on with that one. Well, guys, we've got First Minister's questions tomorrow. Do we think? What do you think the Baroness will go on tomorrow?
I think she'll play it sensible.
Mm-hmm.
She might bring up the Salmond thing.
Well, I was going to say it'll depend what got revealed at today's committee meeting, because I sat down to watch it this morning, but Margaret Mitchell's connection, you know, it was done remote. It was all virtual, as they call it, and her sound and picture was really bad quality. So Leslie Evans was getting away with murder.
Yeah, I think Leslie Evans, though, it has to be said, I think that's the third time I've sat and watched some of her evidence. She's remarkably arrogant. She's remarkably good at avoiding any real questioning. And she does state her case very forcefully that everything was above board. I mean, you'll forgive me. I didn't ken how many times we have to listen to her telling us everything was above board. The court said different. You collapsed your case at the Court of Session, and they still try to minimise that as if to say, oh no, everything was brilliant apart from one small thing. That one small thing was that you, Leslie Evans, and your underlings put in place a disciplinary procedure that was tainted with political bias, and you're still now covering it by using the influence that you've got over the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service.
So you've kind of made your mind up, Jimmy, then?
I've made my mind up that, well, according to the Court of Session, they put in place an illegal procedure, and they tried to nail Alex Salmond with it. And the one thing that really sticks with me, Norrie, is the decision to make this retrospective after they had been advised by Whitehall that making it retrospective was a bad idea. They done it anyway. It's proved to be a bad idea. And frankly, heads maybe should have rolled a long time ago, but there should be vacancies at the very top of the civil service in Scotland.
I know, you're right, but can I just, you touched on the problems, I'll call it corruption at the Crown Office and the police, and we disagreed the other day about, or maybe it wasn't with you, but certainly that the police are not under the control of the Crown Office. Well, I'm sorry, in an article written by Kenny McCaskill, who was Justice Minister, who is a lawyer, he described that the Crown Office controls the police.
The Crown Office,
what the police prosecute and who they prosecute is decided by the Crown Office.
yeah. So in effect, the police give evidence to the Crown Office,
And then the Crown
Office decide whether they should act on it or not.
Yeah, and whether the police need to go and do more, you know, interviews and all the rest of it. So they do what they're
Who
told.
said that wasn't the case?
I'm
That's
not
exactly how it
sure.
works.
I thought it was you or Jimmy.
Well, I found the interview with Mark Hurst on Wings quite illuminating, just how he felt about what he's seen as persecution, basically. Persecution by the Crown Office of him, because they had failed to get Alex Salmond and now desperately want to get anybody, any conviction to kind of justify the money that they've spent. So we'll see when, be interested to see what happens when Craig Murray goes to court, yeah.
The impression I got from that interview with Hurst was that the police thought there was more. I think the police went in there using what they had as an excuse to do a search.
Yeah, they certainly the way he described
feeling
the way he describes them taking his hard drives and computers and everything and raking through it for weeks and weeks, desperately trying to find anything. And it's quite enlightening, but it's also quite worrying. You know, you as a journalist, he is entitled to some kind of protection. As he says, should the police really be going through his financial records? Is it their business? Is it their place to go through his financial records because they disagree with him politically?
Well, and bear in mind, he was the Edinburgh office. He was in charge of the Edinburgh office of Sputnik.
Yeah.
The press agency, which belongs to the Russian state.
I'll tell you what.
I can guarantee anything that Police Scotland got from Mark Hurst's computers is now in the hand. Information of any links to the Russian state is now in the hands of the security services in this country.
Well, if I was Mark Hurst, I'd have tanned the computer and the phone when I got it back, because I'll guarantee you that there's spyware on it.
The security services have just been told they can do exactly what they like.
They can even murder.
They can rape you. They can torture you. They can then murder you, and nothing will happen. So I should imagine little things like that. I mean, it's not even worth considering. I mean, if somebody could talk,
right, guys, we've used up a lot of time today.
Yeah.
Right.
So call it a day at that.
Okay.
Thanks for listening, folks. Thanks for being with me, Jimmy, Stuart.
Bye-bye.
Phil. And we'll catch you all tomorrow. Cheers for now.